Hello, this is Pastor Don Long.
And Pastor Donna Long.
And here we are with Grafted In as we're continuing a series this summer looking at the history of the Middle East. Donna, we're talking about the background to all of that so people can have an understanding and not be fooled by the media today to think, well, we got this little issue here, without understanding that there's been a lot of injustice in the news media about understanding what's going on in the Middle East. I want to very briefly pick up from where we were last week and talk about the land of the Middle East. I described at the end of World War I, there were no nation states in the Middle East. Britain and France basically had control of the whole Middle East from the Ottoman Empire, and they divided it up and said, okay, we're going to create states there. 99%, there were 6 million square miles.
Right.
99% of that 6 million square miles was given to Arabs to create countries that did not exist in World War I. So again, when that man wrote that rebuttal to my letter to the editor in the Sentinel saying, well, you know, land was promised to the Arabs. Excuse me, sir, 99% of the entire Middle East lands were given to Arabs to create countries that did not exist in World War I. This little bit that was left was given for the reestablishment of a state for the Jewish people by treaty, not just because someone said so, by treaty. And so we know that Britain took their main mandate of land, cut 3/4 of it off, said only Arabs could live there. They didn't deal with the problem on the other end. When Palestinians say, we have a right to a land, my answer is, you already have one. It's called Jordan. And so that was the events leading up to it. Well, 15th of May, 1948, Israel was proclaimed a state. Isaiah 66:8. What a powerful verse.
Yes.
Donna, read that for us.
Isaiah 66:8 says, Who has ever heard of such a thing? Who has ever seen such a thing? Can a country be born in a day, or a nation be brought forth in a moment?
In a moment. And this was a prophecy. You know, can a country be born in a day? Can a nation be brought forth in a moment?
The answer is yes.
Yes. And so in May of 1948, we had the creation of the State of Israel.
That's right.
And immediately they were attacked by their neighbors. We'll get into that in a minute.
That's right.
But I want to show you a map on the screen of what originally was the intent for that state.
That's right.
You see, that state was to be on both sides of the Jordan River. And if you can see this map on the screen, you'll see that there's a red line that goes around pretty much what contemporary Israel is, including the so-called West Bank.
A tad smaller than its original mandate was supposed to be.
But clearly over into what is present-day Jordan.
That's right.
That Israel was to have both sides of the Jordan River.
That's right.
That was to be a viable country with defensible borders. But the United Nations proposed dividing up even that part. Insanity. We talked last week about you don't give land for peace. It never works. Right. And they decided that within this 1/4 of the British mandate, they would again divide it. Now wait a minute. Britain took this big mandate, took 3/4 off, said only Arabs can live over here. They already created an Arab country.
That's right.
All the Arabs are welcome to live there, supposedly. And now this 1/4 should have been just for the Jews. But the United Nations committees who said, well, we got to do something because we promised we would do, but let's divide it up. They decided to divide up the remaining land into a Jewish and Arab state, creating another Arab state in the middle of it.
That's right.
Now here's the answer. The Arabs didn't want it.
Nope.
They said, we're not going to take it. We get all or nothing.
That's right.
We don't want any Jews living here.
That's right.
So before we get into what happened with that, let's take a look at the nation of Israel, how it was created. You know, we just recently had 4th of July here in America, and we can go back to the Declaration of Independence as a founding document that reveals something about us as a people.
That's right.
Who we are. All men are created equal. You know, I mean, what are our values? What do we believe? What's in the roots of us as a people?
That's right.
And therefore, what makes us great? You can look in the declarations of all the Arab nations and their documents and see if you can find anything that is humanitarian.
No.
In fact, if you look at the Palestinian charter, we are chartered. So you're going to build a state. What is your charter? Right in their charter is, we're going to destroy Israel.
That's right.
You're going to found a
Drive them into
nation
the sea.
on the basis that we're going to destroy another nation.
That's right.
What kind of a nation is that? But let's take a look at Israel. In their declaration of statehood, here's what Ben Gurion read. Number one, the state of Israel will be open for Jewish immigration and for the ingathering of the exiles.
That's right.
Now, why did they say that? It'll be open for Jewish immigration.
That's right.
Because Britain, against their mandate, had restricted Jewish immigration. Britain was told, we're giving you this land as a trust, and it's to be a homeland for the Jews, and you're to help them settle. And Britain absolutely put a limit on Jewish immigration,
That's right.
which caused many Jews to die.
To die in the Holocaust.
And so the first declaration of Israel, we are open for Jewish immigration, the ingathering of the exiles, whether they're from Argentina, Ethiopia, whether they're from Russia, whether they're from Poland, wherever they are,
That's right.
our nation will receive Jews from any culture in the world.
That's right.
It is the most open immigration
Yes,
policy
it is.
ever.
Yes, it is.
And then it said that this state will foster the development of the country for the benefit of all its inhabitants.
All its inhabitants.
In other words, we're going to develop the nation of Israel to benefit everybody who lives here. Jew, Christian, Muslim,
That's right.
Arab, doesn't make any difference. We develop our country to benefit everybody who lives here.
That's right.
And so the Arabs living in Israel have the highest standard of living
That's right.
of any of the Arabs in all the surrounding so-called Arab
That's right.
nations.
That's
Isn't that
right.
amazing?
It is.
The third thing they said, Donna, why don't you read that?
It says that it will be based on freedom, justice, and peace as envisioned by the prophets of Israel.
The next one.
It will ensure complete equality of social and political rights to all its inhabitants, irrespective of religion, race, or sex.
Now notice that. Right here,
They make that statement.
Israel has declared from its beginnings that it is exceedingly different than all the other Arab nations
That's right.
around it.
That's right.
It will base its policy on freedom, justice, and peace. It will ensure equality
That's right.
of your social rights. That means your right to an education, your right to wherever you want to
right.
live, your right to travel. Political rights. That means you can vote.
You can be elected to
You can be elected to the Knesset.
That's right.
Irregardless of your religion, race, or sex.
That's right.
That is
no other state around them.
that is unheard of in the Middle East.
That's right.
That is
Totally
unheard of in the Middle East.
Totally unheard.
I guarantee you in Egypt, as there is a struggle for democracy, whatever comes out in Egypt will not have this.
No, most definitely.
If you are in Gaza right now, where Hamas is in control, you do not have equal political rights, irregardless of religion, race, or sex.
No, you do not.
If you are in Jordan or Saudi Arabia,
That's right.
you do not have equal rights, irregardless of religion, race, or sex.
You don't even have a right to life if you're of a different religion.
That's
in
right.
Gaza.
That's right. And so if
You will not
if
exist
you're a
there.
woman in Jordan, in Saudi Arabia, you have zip for rights.
That's right.
If you are a Christian or a Jew in those Arab countries, you do not have
You don't
rights.
have a right to life.
I don't have a right to bring my Bible into Saudi Arabia and meet a Saudi on the street and open my Bible and simply tell him about my faith. I do not have that right. I will be imprisoned for it. And yet Israel said that we will guarantee the rights of all our inhabitants.
That's right.
Israel is the only nation in the Middle East that has freedom. None of the rest do.
That's right.
Furthermore, they said they will guarantee freedom of religion, conscience, language, education, and culture.
That's right.
They will safeguard the holy places
Of all religions.
of all religions.
That's right.
Listen, when war erupted, and we're going to talk about that war, and the Jordanians controlled half of Jerusalem, the first thing the Arabs did was destroy the synagogues.
That's right.
They destroyed them.
That's right.
There is no record of the Arabs respecting the holy places of Jews or Christians. When Arab terrorists invaded the Church of the Nativity several years ago, the monks, when they finally came out, said they destroyed our scriptures, they desecrated the holy place there. Islamic Arabs have no respect for the rights of any other religion. Jew, Christian, Buddhist, whatever, doesn't make any difference. Islam has no respect for the rights of other religions.
That's right.
The Jew in Israel does.
Yes.
Now help me understand this. Why on earth would I want to create another Arab nation for the Palestinians so they can disrespect the rights of religion, race, or sex, when I've got the nation of Israel that does? You see, Arabs can live in Israel.
Yes, they can.
But Jews,
And they can prosper in Israel.
Jews cannot live in a new Palestinian state if one's created.
Nope.
Now, Donna, we were just in Israel.
That's right, we were.
See, when people say, try to tell me what they think, is come to Israel with us.
That's right.
When
We'll
we
show
were
you.
driving around Israel, our tour guide would point out different kinds of cities and villages, and what would he say? That's a what?
That's an Arab city.
That's an Arab city?
That's
an Arab village?
That's an
Now,
Arab village.
where were we when he pointed that out?
In Israel.
In
the
Israel.
state of Israel.
And so in Israel, you drive outside of Tel Aviv, and that's an Arab city. What do we mean? Doesn't mean there's not any Jews living there, but predominantly, overwhelmingly, Arabs live in that city.
That's right.
And we go to another city, and he said that's an Arab neighborhood.
That's right.
What does that mean? Arabs can live there.
That's right.
Now, when they live there, do they have political rights? Yeah.
They certainly do.
Can they walk down their streets without fear that someone's going to
They
shoot them?
certainly can.
They sure can. Okay. But when we traveled in the Shamron, which is called the West Bank in the world, and we looked at some of the communities of, let's take a look at Ofra. 9,000 people live there. They got their own schools and business. They're living in an area that they didn't take from anybody. Again, these were mostly barren hillsides that they settled on, built their homes, built their schools, built their synagogues. 9,000 people living there.
But it's their state. How could it be said that they took the land?
Right.
I mean,
But they're living there.
right.
So they're living there. And then we come along, and I would point out to you, if the Palestinians are given a state in the West Bank, what happens to that Jewish community?
it will be destroyed.
It will be destroyed.
Along with the people.
So the people will have to leave.
Yep.
Why will they have to leave?
Because
Why can't they just live there?
They'll just kill them. They'll just slaughter them.
Because the Arabs will kill them.
Yes, they will.
The Arabs will kill them.
them.
Absolutely. People don't understand this. You got to quit thinking of the world like you are. Well, we wouldn't kill the Jews if they moved in our neighborhood. We wouldn't kill the blacks because they moved over here. Listen, the world knows. Our government knows this. The British government knows this. This is why in any discussion of a future Palestinian state, our so-called democratic leaders are accepting the fact that no Jew will be allowed to live there.
That's right.
Why will they not be allowed to live there? Because they will be murdered.
That's right.
Hebron's a good example.
That's right. That's right.
There have been, when Britain owned the mandate, there were several times when the Arabs rose up and murdered 29 in one occasion, 68 in another occasion, Jews in their little Jewish neighborhood in Hebron, and the British answer was, make the Jews leave. Excuse me, why don't you go in and protect the Jews who have a right to live in their own city, at their own holy place,
That's right.
and hold accountable the Arabs that killed them and put them in prison for killing them? Why didn't you establish law? Instead, Britain said, force the Jews out.
That's right.
Well, Hebron is part of the cities that would be given
That's right.
to Arab terrorists to form another Arab state so Jews can't live there.
That's right.
It's insane.
It is.
And no one's talking about it. It's not being talked on your TV news. You know, back when the war was going on in the Balkans, there was a statement by the United Nations of what is called ethnic cleansing.
That's right.
Ethnic cleansing is more immoral and it's against the laws of the United Nations. Ethnic cleansing is when you force one population culturally or religiously to vacate where their homeland was into another to replace them with your own people.
That's right.
According to the
exactly what they're
UN's own definitions, it is immoral and illegal to force Jews out of the Shomron only to have Arabs go in and live there.
That's right.
That's immoral and illegal.
It is.
And yet that's exactly what is being planned.
That's what's being
what is
planned.
being taught.
That's right.
Because people are afraid to stand up and speak the truth.
That's right.
You can be an Arab and you can live in Israel. You can be an Arab and
In
elected,
safety and in security.
and you can live. You can be an Arab and elected to the Knesset,
That's right.
but you can't be a Jew, and have any power or position in an Islamic country.
Nope. No, you can't.
It's absolutely amazing. So Israel declares its independence, and as I said, no nation in the Middle East has that. You know, when we look at the Middle East, we see that Israel totally developed the land.
That's right.
And maybe we can show you some pictures about that, but let's just talk for a minute, Donna, about our trip to Israel.
Yes.
Describe the valley of Armageddon that we saw.
Well, you would think if you looked at it that you were out in Pennsylvania, Dutch country or something with
Yeah.
all the lush vegetation that's growing. I mean, farming the land and all that. And you look through, and I mean, and it's dotted with villages all around it. But it's growing and green and thriving, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful land.
And as we drive along outside of Tel Aviv, same kind of thing.
That's right.
Is that you just see acres and acres and acres of farmland. And lush crops being grown
That's
there.
right.
And people might look at that and say, well, look at the land that the Jews took from the Arabs.
That's not what it looked like when they came there.
Right, you've seen pictures of it.
That's
What
right.
was it?
It was marshlands. It was mosquito infested, and it was disease ridden, and it was non-inhabited.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In fact, Mark Twain
That's right.
went on a trip through Israel, and he wrote about it in one of his books, and he says it's a
godforsaken
godforsaken land.
land.
Nobody
He
lives
wasn't
here.
quite right.
Nobody lives here, and it's true. Sand dunes. Tel Aviv,
That's right.
which is a modern city. Tel Aviv was all
It's all
sand
sand
dunes.
dunes.
Why didn't the Arabs develop communities there? Because the Arabs stayed up in the mountains away from there. They didn't want to get with the swamps.
That's
So
right.
the Jewish pioneers came in, bought the land,
That's right.
drained it,
Drained it.
developed it, and now people look at it and they say,
Look
look
what
at
they
those
took from
prosperous
them.
Jews and look
Look
at
what
these
they
poor
took.
Arabs.
That's right.
Excuse me, the Jews developed the land.
That's right.
So when they declared themselves a state,
Yes.
what happened? They were immediately invaded
That's right.
by 4 powerful nations.
That's right. They sure were.
Imagine, here you are, you're a baby nation. You know what it would be like on the 4th of July? We issue the Declaration of Independence, and Britain now is going to have war with us. It would be like not only Britain, but France and Germany and somewhere else. They all decided to fight us at the
right.
same time.
That's right.
Israel declares we are an independent state.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately they are invaded by Egypt, Jordan, Iraq, and Syria.
All those newly created states around them.
Now, those 4 nations, Egypt, Jordan, Iraq, and Syria,
Yep.
vowed to utterly destroy Israel
That's right.
and wipe out
all the Jews.
all the Jews.
That's right.
That's what they
They
vowed to
were
do.
all in agreement.
That's what they were
of
going to
one
do.
mind and one heart and one accord.
Now get the picture. Here's little Israel. Here comes Egypt from the south. Here comes Jordan from the east. Here comes Iraq from the northeast. And here comes Syria from the north.
Yep.
They're invading you.
That's right.
These nations have armies that have been trained
That's
by
right.
the British.
By the British.
In fact, Jordan has British military officers helping their units decide how to fight.
That's right.
Egypt and Syria both had airplanes. Israel, I think, had 2. I mean, it is nothing short of a divine miracle
That's right.
that Israel survived.
That day. That's right.
But as the Jordanians and Iraqis and Syrians were coming into Israel, they went on their radios, Donna, and they told all the Arabs living in Israel,
Yep.
get out so we can come in and take over the land without hurting you.
That's right. And then
Get
later
out.
you can come back in.
And then after 2 or 3 days, because that's all they thought it would take, after 2 or 3 days, when we've wiped out every Jew, then you can come back.
Come back in. That's right.
That is documented historical fact that the Arabs told the Arabs to leave.
That's right.
In some places like in Tel Aviv, the Jews went to the Arabs and said, don't leave, don't leave. You know, we have place for you.
That's
You can
right.
stay
you can
here.
Stay. We'll
Now,
take care. We'll make sure you're secure and you're prosperous.
Were there isolated incidents where there were Jews who wanted the Arabs to leave? Of
I'm
course.
sure.
Come on, they've been attacked by Arabs all their life.
That's right.
It's like, sure, there were Jews who wanted the Arabs out of there.
That's right.
But by and large, the Jewish people were not the ones who caused the Arabs to leave. It was the Arabs themselves.
That's
and
right.
interviews with top Arab leadership in the early 1950s, and these are documented interviews, the Arab leadership admits,
That's right.
we told them to leave. Now we have this whole myth that back in 1948, the Israelis kicked the Arabs out.
That's right.
It's a total myth. It's not
True.
historical
It's a lie.
truth.
It's
a
But
lie.
if you say a lie
Often enough,
people believe
and
it's
Arafat
true.
was pretty good at that. Now, what does that mean? It means the Arabs created the refugee problem.
That's right.
They created it themselves.
That's right.
They told these people to leave, and some 600,000 or so Arabs fled toward the Arab countries.
That's right.
Now, let's talk about what happened, because we know the war was won. At the same time, throughout the Middle East, because Israel won that war, being a Jew in an Arab country was a very risky thing.
Yes, it was.
And by the thousands, Jews were forced to leave Arab countries. Their property was confiscated.
That's right.
Their businesses were confiscated.
That's right.
And here sits tiny little Israel trying to be a brand new nation. And what did they say? Roughly 300,000 Jews came from the Middle East into Israel.
right.
And Israel said, our arms are open.
That's right.
We'll take it. We don't know how we're going to feed you. We don't know how we're going to manage, but come and be at home.
That's right.
So what happened to 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 Arabs who went the other way? Did Jordan say, our arms are open, we'll take you? Did Iraq say, you can come live with us? Did Egypt say, you're our Arab brothers, come down and live with here? No, they entered into refugee camps
That's right.
and never left.
That's right.
That is not Israel's fault.
No, it is not.
That is the fault, first of all,
That's right.
of the United Nations
That's right.
that refused to force them to be resettled.
That's
And
right.
it's the fault of the Arab nations who wouldn't take
Wouldn't
their own brothers.
people. Their own people. That's right.
Every major war has had refugees.
That's right.
And in every major war, even ones that are going on now, the United Nations goes in and sets up a commission to help the refugees get resettled.
Resettled. That's right.
And in every commission by the United Nations, by 2-3 years at the most,
right.
the commission reports back to the United Nations, our job is done, all the refugees have been resettled, except one.
That's right.
The Palestinian Refugee Commission has gone on for over 60
years.
years.
Yep. That's right.
It is
They want it to.
They want it to.
'cause
Arafat wanted the
they're cashing in on that.
Palestinian refugee.
That's right.
That is the pressure they give the world. Look what the Israelis have done.
Yep.
Absolutely amazing.
right.
The only refugee commission that's ever gone beyond 3 years, the Palestinian Refugee Commission, 60 years, has not done what it's chartered to do, which is resettle the Palestinians. Why? Because the Arab nations don't want them.
They don't. No,
They
don't.
want to keep this
That's right.
as a problem. And now what do we have? Liberal do-gooders running around saying, oh, the poor Arab Palestinian
Oh,
refugees,
yes,
they have a right to their own state. That is hypocrisy
That's right.
put down altogether. Well, what happened? That war that those nations came against Israel ended on the 15th of July. Israel now had 8,000 square miles, as opposed to the 6,500 that the UN
That's right.
originally
They
gave
gained
them.
more land.
Now, let's back up to what you've learned over the past few weeks. Israel, at the end of that war, now has 8,000 square miles of the 8 million square miles at the end of World War II.
Yep, 6 million.
You know, if I gave my son $6 million,
Yes.
and then he came to me and said, Dad, I need more, and I say, well, wait a minute, I've got 8,000 is what I've got. What did you do with the 6 million you've got?
That's right.
You got $6 million, I've got 8,000, and you're going to come tell me I need to give you more or I'm a lousy dad? I mean, excuse me, what did you do with your land?
That's right.
8 million square miles at the end of World War II in the Middle East, given to create new nation states. 99% of that created Arab nations.
That's right.
1%, 8,000 square miles.
Actually, 6,500.
Right,
They gained
right,
it.
but
Okay.
8,000 square miles for a Jewish state. 1%.
That's right.
And you have the audacity to tell me you want to create yet another Palestinian Arab state? You're out of your mind.
That's right.
It is ludicrous. It is insane.
That's right.
And so people, but they don't understand. We're taught history as if all these nations existed and there's big bad apartheid Israel doing this ugly thing in the world. Learn your history.
That's right. If you would only just look at the map and see how little they are compared to all this other thing. I mean,
And understand where it came from.
And that's right. It's ridiculous. It's
So
ridiculous.
you're going to give them another 2,000 square miles. And then they're going to want another 2,000 after that. And then they've already told you what they want. They
All of it.
do not want a Jewish state at all.
That's right.
But God says, my people will have a land.
Yes, they will.
It is the land that God promised them. And God says any nation that comes against my people to divide their land, woe to that nation. Well, this is Pastor Don and Donna Long, and it's been good to have you with us once again here on Grafted In. Get some friends together and join us next week as we continue learning the history of the Middle East.